everyone, welcome to another book review Wednesday, and today I am going to be diving briefly into the short book of The Perks of Being a Wallflower by Stephen Chbosky. I think that's how you pronounce his last name. And this one is quite interesting from a lot of the other books that I review, considering the fact that it is considered a young adult novel. I haven't really touched upon those kinds of works for quite some time. But basically, this one in particular follows the story of a teenage boy named Charlie, who just starts high school, and you'll sort of see how his first year of high school starts and also when it ends. So it just goes through 1 year of high school, not the entire 4 years of high school. But basically, you'll ultimately see the struggles that he has with love, with friendship, with family, and all of that. And it really encompasses a huge portion of the book and is sort of very important into not only understanding Charlie as a character, but also the circumstances that he gets involved in. And he is one of those teenagers who's experienced some death within his family, as well as with a particular friend. I believe they mentioned that within the beginning of the story. And he sort of suffers depression because of this, and you'll sort of see how he kind of tries to cope with it. And what's great about this particular work as well is the fact that it is all told through Charlie's perspective, and this makes him the narrator throughout the story. And it's also quite interesting because he doesn't just talk in the regular format of what you would expect. He sort of writes his thoughts and the plot down within the context of speaking to a friend, and it's never really revealed who this friend is, but it's kind of like a diary, so to speak. So when he writes things down, he puts like the date, and then he puts down sort of dear friend, so it's within that format as well, which gives it a rather interesting I guess interpretation that oftentimes young adult novels don't explore, although there are some that do. It's just not as, I would say, as common. But what's also great too, though, about the story is the fact that it seems to maintain authenticity to its time period. In particular, this book takes place around the early 90s. And if you really know anything, I guess, about the 90s, I mean, I don't really know what it was like to be a teenager within the early 90s since I was born around that time. But I could definitely see that the book was trying to maintain a certain level of consistency as far as sort of what it was like being a teenager around that period. And you'll sort of see this kind of rebellious nature that various people within the story take, and it also addresses issues that were considered somewhat more taboo within around the 90s, whereas today they would probably be considered to be at least more acceptable. So again, it really dives into those aspects really well, by maintaining a certain level of again, authenticity to the time period that it's taking place in. Also, Charlie in particular as a character, I'd say, is fairly likable and relatable, I think, to a certain extent. I just think that sometimes he's a little bit insecure to the point where it's kind of, it's almost to a point where it kind of gets a little, I don't know if I would express it as annoying, but I think there was just a certain aspect to that part of him, you know, and even though he does kind of try to evolve out of the insecurities that he has, um, you know, I didn't feel like that they addressed it and addressed that development, I think, enough within the story. It almost seems like he still maintains himself throughout, and doesn't really necessarily change all too much. Um, Even though sort of towards the end, you'll see how one character kind of tries to snap him out of his inability to kind of be confident and kind of happy with himself. Um, and again, I think this is one of those things that, excuse me, um, that people were probably, in particular during that time period, also going through, and also with the kind of whole changing of dynamics, in particular with family and whatnot, and different circumstances happening within life, you can sort of see why ultimately Charlie has these insecurities. But again, like I've said before, I don't think the book does as good of a job as kind of developing him out of those insecurities. Um, and there's also certain aspects as well that don't kind of really get resolved within the story. I think it's more so just designed to be focused on just a period within Charlie's life and sort of how it impacted him. Um, Again, like a lot of other things, you know, there's certain aspects, again, that I wish they would touch more upon. Like, again, like I said before, with the development and whatnot, with his character and trying to um, get him to being a little bit more secure about himself. Um, and also, I will say that there are certain parts within the story that might be a little bit too raunchy for some people. Um, I wouldn't say it was as raunchy for me, but I could understand why some people wouldn't maybe gravitate towards it because of the fact that it tries to be a little bit raunchy at times, and again, it addresses things that um, maybe even what we would consider nowadays is a little bit taboo. But again, you know, obviously the times have changed significantly since I think the 90s. But again, here it's sort of expressed well within the context of the period, and again, it addresses sort of some as well some excuse me, controversial issues as well. Um, you know, and there may be certain parts that you may not necessarily agree with, um, or agree with the way in which Charlie maybe handles certain situations. But at the same time, it's still an interesting look into sort of the psyche of a teenager who is sort of going through these changes within his life, and in doing so, having to kind of navigate through them despite his insecurities with himself. But I think that's really all I can say about it without really giving too much away. I think it's worthy of a recommendation if you enjoy young adult novels. I mean, if you really like exploring teenagers and whatnot, again, this will definitely appeal to you. However, if you're not really into the whole rebellious type uh, of books that oftentimes you'll see teenage novels focus on, then this may not be your cup of tea. But I think that's really all I can say though for this particular video, but thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a pleasant day, week, month, and year, and I hope to see you all in the next video, and feel free to let me know if there are any questions, comments, or concerns. Until next time, everybody, bye-bye.